So good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello.
This is a special year. We're welcoming COP26 Climate Conference to Glasgow in November. And Eco Congregation Scotland are really delighted to invite you along tonight and welcome you tonight to the Scottish launch of Climate Sunday. Now, we know there's quite a number of Scottish churches already registered and committed to take part in this initiative, but we want to just encourage as many more congregations across Scotland as we possibly can to get themselves involved. And what's really wonderful is we've got the Climate Sunday project coordinator with us tonight, James Anthony. We'll also be hearing from my Eco Congregation colleagues, Reverend David Coleman and Stephen Curran. Please, during the meeting, if there's anything that you want to chat about, please put it into the comments box, into the chat box. We're going to have time for questions and discussions at the end of all the presentations, so probably we think round about 8 o'clock. Some of you will maybe recognise James. He was one of our programme coordinators. Sorry, I've got a cat come to join me, as usually happens at these events. Having first started work for Eco Congregation Scotland in December 2017, he has a bit of a specialism, and it's really supporting churches in applying for climate-related government grants. He's currently on leave, and he has been for the past year. At first, parental leave at home in Dundee, because he's got a new addition to his family. And since then, it's been enabling him to coordinate the Climate Sunday project together with churches together in Britain and Ireland. So that's where he's been for the last year, if you've been missing James. So James, I've just got to welcome you, and we're looking forward to your presentation. I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Judith, and thanks everyone for signing up this evening. And as Judith mentioned, do please pop any questions you have in the chat, and we'll get to those just after 8 o'clock. So to start, I'm going to share my screen and take you through the overview of Climate Sunday. Here we go. So hopefully you can now see our Climate Sunday branding, and Climate Sunday is an initiative that started last September and is being coordinated by the Environmental Issues Network of Churches Together in Britain and Ireland, which is the ecumenical instrument. Many of you may be familiar with ACTS in Scotland, and CTBI is across Britain and Ireland. Now, the organisations that form the Environmental Issues Network and that are all formally supporting Climate Sunday are shown here. So there are currently 26 denominations and Christian organisations, so ranging from all the main denominations in Scotland, particularly. We have the Church of Scotland represented, we have Eco Congregation Scotland represented, along with many others. And all the time there are more denominations and Christian environmental and development churches coming on board to formally support the initiative. So it's great to have truly such an ecumenical initiative, and we know this is the largest joint initiative by the Church in the UK in advance of COP26 to highlight the climate crisis and to show that this is something that we as Christians care about and want to see our government take bold and ambitious action to tackle. So Climate Sunday has three strands to it, and the first is worship. And the ask here, or the opportunity here, is for local churches across Britain and Ireland to hold a climate-focused service. And what that means is, using a Sunday service, or it can be on any day of the week, to be honest, but the name lends itself to Sunday, to use a service to make that link between our faith and action on climate, to pray for it and to commit to action. And we have on climatesunday.org free resources for every church tradition, where you can access sermon ideas, you can access music and hymn suggestions, materials for youth and young people activities, as well as prayers and readings. And there are resources for various traditions, and there are additional service resources coming. I know in the next couple of weeks we have resources from the Salvation Army. Some of those that are already available include resources from CAFOD for the Catholic Church, and from Catine, which is an ecumenical resource in Wales. And there's also resources available that Eco Congregation Scotland have been involved in production around Creation Time too. So there's a wealth of stuff there, and if you find that there's something that you'd like to see but don't for your particular tradition, then please get in touch, because we're very keen to make sure that every church is served with the resources that we offer. And when it comes to worship, we do ask, if churches choose to hold a Climate Sunday, that they let us know they're doing so. And the reason for that is that so that we can count you in, and that when we present to UK government the actions and commitments of churches, that we're able to demonstrate just how many are taking this issue seriously. The second strand is to commit as a local church community to taking long-term action to reduce our own greenhouse gases, either as a church or as a local community. And the fantastic way to do that, as all of us will know, is through one of the greening schemes. And obviously Eco Congregation Scotland is that for all of us here in Scotland. So the encouragement there for churches who've never taken action on the environment before is that they join Eco Congregation Scotland. And for those of us that are already members, the encouragement is that we progress through the award scheme, because obviously moving towards an award or to the next level of an award is just an extension of that commitment to grassroots action. And then thirdly, speak up. And speaking up is essentially just using our collective voice to call for a cleaner, greener, fairer future. And we've come together with an organisation or a coalition called the Climate Coalition. And they are a collection, really are a coalition of all the major environmental charities in the UK. And that includes large ones such as the RSPB, but it includes many faith organisations as well. And all of those church denominations and charities I showed you the logos of earlier, many of those are members of the Climate Coalition as well. So the declaration that they've put together is called The Time Is Now. And it's so far, since it launched earlier this year, has been signed by over 136,000 individuals. And we're hoping, or the coalition is hoping, that that number will reach over 1 million by the time COP26 comes around. And by mobilising the Christian community in Britain and Ireland, we hope that we'll be able to make a significant addition to the numbers that this declaration will gather. And the good thing about one of the good things about doing Climate Sunday right now is that despite many of our buildings being closed, or right now for us, all of our church buildings being closed, many churches are choosing to do their Climate Sundays online. And that means that any of us can watch Climate Sundays that have been made publicly available. And this is just a few screenshots of some that happened earlier in the initiative. And when you go to our website, you can click on the YouTube link on the top right and see a whole selection of services from every church tradition, from all of the nations across Britain and Ireland. And take inspiration from what has already happened. And that's obviously something a couple of years ago that we just wouldn't have had. So I think that's a nice silver lining just now. I mentioned commit, and Stephen's going to talk more about the opportunities available via Eco Congregation Scotland. But I wanted to share a very quick video just to kind of highlight that declaration I talked about from the Climate Coalition. So this video gives a very snappy overview, it's less than 2 minutes long, of what's been achieved so far by organisations and individuals using their voice, and also what we hope to achieve with the Time is Now Declaration. And the key thing about this is that both we as individuals can sign, but also we as churches can sign. And when you go to climatesunday.org, on the homepage there is a button to sign the declaration. And when people do it through our website, the numbers are collated, and again, we're able then to sort of demonstrate how many churches and churchgoers have taken part. So I'll just hit play here, and hopefully the audio will all come through fine for you.
We have been presented with two options, and we need to choose.
Great, and that video is available if you'd like to use it to promote the Time is Now Declaration on your social media or website. It's also available for use during the service if you'd like to promote that at an online or an in-person service as well. And obviously the opportunity and the reason that we're doing Climate Sunday right now is because COP26 is coming to Glasgow this November. What we will also be doing in Glasgow on the 5th of September is holding a Climate Sunday event for the nations of Britain and Ireland. And at that event, we will be presenting to UK government the collective actions and commitments and numbers that have signed the declaration, and sort of making the case that the government has the backing and the encouragement, or the church is really pushing them on this issue to go further than they would have otherwise. Services, Climate Sunday services can happen at any point right up to COP26, but we do ask that they are registered as early as possible, and ideally before that large event in Glasgow on the 5th of September, so that we can include your service in the numbers and that we're able to present to government at that point. And more details on that national event will be available soon. We're still in the planning phases. We deliberately held off confirming some of the details, just given the uncertainty around large events. So we'll definitely be doing an online aspect of that, so that people can participate from anywhere and join in, regardless of whether travel in and out of Glasgow is recommended at the time. And I've mentioned the website. It's just a wee screenshot of the homepage, climatesunday.org. And there are themed resources on there as well that just add something, I guess, in terms of people's interests. So already there's climate and money, climate and food, and climate emergency resources from some of the partners. And coming up is climate and money and climate and church buildings as well, in terms of practical action that we as individuals and as churches can take on those issues related to climate. So I'll stop my presentation now, because that's been 15 minutes, and I'll pass back to Judith to take us through the programme. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, James. That was really helpful. That's great. We're going to come in a moment to our eco-chaplain, Reverend David Coleman. You may not be aware of the work that David does with us for Eco Congregation and the kind of things that he can do. So we're going to hear first, before we actually hear from David himself, we're going to see a short video which he made quite a while ago, just as a plug, so that you know what is happening and the kind of things he can offer to your congregation in the way of support over this time. So some thoughts about worship and things.
Hello, my name's David. I'm the Eco Chaplain with Eco Congregation Scotland, which brings together 500 Christian congregations as we seek to follow Jesus Christ in an age of many layered environmental crises. Over the last year and a half, I've covered quite a bit of ground. From Melrose to Sutherland, from Edinburgh and Linlithgow to Mull, Iona and Colonsay, from rural settings like the Isle of Seal and Dunsker to inner city churches like Govan and Lindhouse or Castle Milk. An intimate chat with a small student group or a major service in a grand historic setting. As you may gather, we've tried to keep things geographically transparent rather than being only rooted in the central belt. We also cross other barriers and borders. The shapes, sizes and body language of Christian fellowships vary as much as the Scottish landscape. What I bring is generally encouraging and very challenging biblical preaching, fully integrated with graphics and multimedia that help us deal with bigger ideas than words alone might manage. The immediate crisis of the virus has not halted the work of the chaplaincy. In fact, because so many of you are now meeting online, it's now even more straightforward for me to come and share in what you share as church in your place in this strange time. I can pre-record a reflection of any reasonable length and also be present when your fellowship meets to chat before or after the service. My aim is to work with the ways you're discovering to see what the Spirit is saying to the churches today. Think of this as you would an offer of a visiting preacher for Eco Congregation Scotland, because thanks to some very everyday technology, that's what I now am. The diary that seemed to be clearing is now filling up. Get in touch now for a digital visit sooner or a face-to-face one later, though the confidence of the churches is growing so fast that I think we'll be working by digital means way beyond the current crisis, reaching the people and places who might have missed out until now. So now and in days to come, be encouraged to ring a bell for your concern for creation, firmly together with your faith in Christ, in God, the King, to whom in all of this be the glory.
Okay, so David, I'm going to hand over to you to have a chat about the kind of things that you can do to help support all these churches in the coming year.
Okay, thank you very much, Judith. Yes, looking back at that, we've all been through quite a bit of hairstyles in the last year or so. What that was getting across was that if you have either in person or online, and sometimes we're doing both now, a chaplain visit, it's not just a chance to fill in a gap in the preaching rota. As with Climate Sunday, the idea of the chaplaincy is that we're traveling with people on a journey of change. It really is evangelism in the sense of both changing ourselves and looking at bringing good news. And the substance of that, certainly in terms of Climate Sunday, is those three strands of worship, commit, and speak up. Now, it was probably getting on for 2 years ago now. I was at a meeting and there was this actually a Roman Catholic priest, and he was saying, how on earth am I ever going to get the congregation together to talk about these things? And I said, do you meet on Sunday? And the thing is, we are approaching this as churches. We're looking at not just picking up every secular way of approaching the environment. This is a response of faith to the crisis that our world is in. Within any given congregation, I've noticed certainly there are different locations of leadership. It might be the young people, it might be the older people, it might even be the priest or the pastor or the minister. But you do need to sort of look for and encourage leadership, and certainly I will be looking for that in as gracious and non-judgmental a way as possible. The other thing is, of course, we can only support and encourage, we cannot do it for you. This is about being the church in this special and very challenging time. And also, again, with the speak up thing, learning to make a noise. I know a lot of people grow up as Christians thinking, oh dear, we must be very modest and quiet. And, this is the time to read that bit of what Jesus said about letting people see the good you do, and so that they will praise your Father in heaven. And something which is taking off a little bit, and I'm now leaving a bell with every church that I visit, is this. That's a good one, that one. Ringing a bell, which is not just a bell to call people to worship, it is a bell of alarm, and also a bell to call injustice to account. I've noticed people are starting to get quite creative with that. Obviously, if you've already got a bell of your own and I can't get there, just be creative, but have fun as well. I think the thing is about commitments, and as I've come across all sorts of really inspiring things people are doing. Find something that you enjoy. I've discovered some people really enjoy cleaning beaches. They probably enjoy it all the more because you come across a beach which has become spotless, and you realize the difference that has been made. Find something you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, you'll carry on doing it, and it'll also look attractive to anybody else who comes across what you're up to. Worship, commit, speak up, all of these things as an expression of your faith. There's a further expression of our faith, and I think that is learning to live with the imperfection, both of the things we do, and perhaps when we get to COP, that the conference may not take quite as much notice of us as we think they'd like to, as we would like them to. That's no reason not to commit. It's no reason not to speak out, but we approach all these things with grace, realizing we are part of the change. We are not in charge. God is the one into whose hands we put our worship and our commitment and our speaking up. I will say also one lovely thing about this meeting is a lot of familiar faces, including some people who've got up to some interesting things with bells and litter picking and goodness knows what. So great to see you again. Let's keep building this movement, because online we're discovering we are a family, and families look after each other, but also build each other up, and sometimes need a lot of patience as well. But that's life. That's what it's like to be a church. In terms of worship material, I'm most of the time producing something which is akin to a sermon on a Sunday, which means I think fairly intensely in a green sort of way about the sort of readings that you're working at. It's a wonderful opportunity, but it works all the better if I'm talking to a real church rather than sort of out into space. So if you invite me in the next year or to even help you with a Climate Sunday, then again, first of all, it's great for me. Secondly, it becomes visible to other people. And thirdly, I think you're going to have a bit of an adventure, because that's what it's about. Is that enough for you, Stephen? Oh no, Judith's chairing tonight. Right.
I think that's absolutely perfect, David. And please do, if you've got questions for David, pop them into the chat box and we'll come back to them in a few minutes. First of all, though, we're going to hear from Stephen Curran. He's the manager at Eco Congregation Scotland, and Stephen's going to have a wee chat with about some other resources and ideas that he might have for you to help you with all of this. So I'm going to hand over to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Judith. And I think for me, the important thing about tonight is it's about supporting each other. As David said, we're all part of the one big family of all the churches in Scotland, potentially doing something in this very special year of hosting COP26. Now, I'm going to share a couple of ideas in relation to the commit to local action and the speak up themes, which are obviously two of the three parts, alongside obviously the importance of having the climate service in your church. I'm just going to share a couple of resources with you just now. One of them is the 360 carbon calculator, 360 degrees carbon calculator. That's a carbon calculator for churches, which is a web-based tool which enables churches to measure their carbon footprint from different activities, whether it's energy, water, waste, travel, food, other expenditure. It was commissioned by our friends at Arosha UK and the Church of England, and they did a pilot project in Leeds Diocese 3 years ago. And Arosha run Eco Church, which is our equivalent scheme to Eco Congregation in England and Wales. The site's entirely free. It's designed for use for all church denominations and basically allows you to sign up for an account, enter real or imaginary data to see how it all works. They've also got, importantly, a user guide as part of this, which they suggest you read beforehand. Now, I know from doing some DIY in the house, I'm probably the last person to read the user guide first, but they are saying have a quick check at that. But it is a very useful resource, and it's at 360carbon.org. The other important thing to share in relation to that is that it is a resource which you can dip into any time and change the figures in it. I'll show, for example, here what it actually presents as when you get to see the result that you have. You'll see here on the screen, it's got the emissions in terms of the overall emissions for this example church. Measures the energy from the main church building, the church hall, the minister's house, the travel that the congregation have accumulated in terms of the church, types of food there, the use of food, waste of food, expenditure, how much do you spend in different aspects of the church life and what's the carbon footprint for that, and the amount of waste and amount of water that you use. And it's a really, really useful resource. So I really recommend, and we'll encourage this through our own newsletter as well, 360carbon.org. It's also a fantastic resource for the net zero commitment, which we know, for example, certain denominations in Scotland have already made a commitment on for the coming decade. And we really look to encourage you to do that as much as you possibly can. What we also have here is ideas in terms of speak up. And we know that some of the people who are involved in this meeting, I recognise Rab Burnett and Helen Hughes were involved in the Just and Green Recovery for Scotland campaigns, online lobby of MSPs. We're obviously in the run up to the Scottish Parliament election in May. So we'll be sharing with you some of the activities around the Just and Green Recovery to build a recovery out of coronavirus that puts people and planet first, which is something that our trustees have signed up for as a campaign. We're very much part of Stop Climate Chaos Scotland in the run up to COP. You may see some familiar faces in this picture. Don't know if you can see Barry Watson's on the right there with the Church of Scotland.
What a surprise. Yes.
T-shirt on. And there's Christian Aid been held up by somebody who looks very like David Coleman. There's a few other familiar faces there, but I won't name check everybody at this point in time. But along with about a dozen other faith organisations, denominations, the aid charities, we are very much involved in Stop Climate Chaos's work towards COP26 and campaigning on that as well. There was a mention in the chat, I think Karen Bowman mentioned in the chat, the Time Is Now commitment is a UK-wide commitment, which we're part of through Stop Climate Chaos, which is the ask of the Speak Up commitment that James mentioned in his presentation. The Scottish Church's COP26 pledge is on our own webpage at ecocongregationscotland.org, Scottish Church's pledge, and that's about a commitment to a just and green recovery and divestment from fossil fuels and investment for individuals, local churches and regional bodies like presbyteries and dioceses, and hopefully national church denominations to sign up for as a commitment in Scotland for churches in relation to COP. So that's another example speaking up. The final point I'll share here is in relation to our own resources which we have in relation to David's obviously shared some of the work there in that fantastic plug. You can see here that we have the Eco Congregation Scotland newsletter on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and Eco Chaplain online on Facebook. You can get the worship resources. We have a 2-page monthly briefing at ecocongregationscotland.org/COP26, which is on one page telling you what is COP26, and importantly on the second page, how can you get involved in worship, action and advocacy through your own church. The resources which Judith brought together on Let's Talk About the Climate Emergency continue on a theme monthly basis towards COP26, and we'll do an event for the wider movement at the end of every month in relation to that. And of course, the important point we're obviously wanting you to get to tonight is Climate Sunday. Okay, holding a service, committing to local action and speaking up. It'd be great if all the churches who are represented tonight and churches all over Scotland could really get involved in this as a really exciting way to get your own church and your own community involved in COP26 and climate action as a people of faith. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. That was excellent. That's our 3 speakers for this evening. So the floor is really open for questions. I noticed there's 1 or 2 questions popped into the chat box. I'm just going to quickly find those again. So Els from St. Abbs had a question for David. Looking for help to organise a Climate Sunday, do you have a video clip to invite church members to join in and help out with the service, and possibly some actions and commitments too? I know you've answered it in the chat, but it'd be good if you did it. So we can all...
Well, yes, I mean, it sounds to me like a chance to go ahead and make such a thing. St. Abbs, well, I don't know. You're just outside our range, of course, since I'm based in Edinburgh, but we might yet have a chance to go and get it. There's another of our friends has suggested something from JPIT. That's the Joint Public Issues team, and they're always worth a look on issues of justice and social concern. So I will myself also have a look at that video. But if it doesn't exist, make it, write it, put it together. You are the resource, you see, above all, and sometimes we can help and encourage, but okay, it's clearly there's a need for that. We'll give it some thought. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to put this question in the way of James and Stephen together, actually. Which organisations here are on Twitter?
Well, if we are thinking about the 26 organisations that kind of form the coalition of Climate Sunday, including Eco Congregation Scotland, we are, many of them are on Twitter. Now, on climatesunday.org, top right hand side, there's a little Twitter icon. And I would encourage you to click on that. It'll take you to the Climate Sunday Twitter, where we feature and retweet content from all of those organisations, where you can therefore find their Twitter handles, whether it be Eco Congregation Scotland or many of the denominations that are involved. Some have specific Environment Department Twitter handles. JPIT that was mentioned earlier, I posted the video there that they've made to promote Climate Sunday. You'll find them on our Twitter feed, as well as retweets of congregations who've held services and shared it on their Twitters. So again, it's a great place for inspiration, and we'd encourage you to hashtag Climate Sunday on any social media platform that you're using, because then whether you're following us or we're following you, we can still see the tweet or post that you put up. And if anyone makes content as well, as David mentioned, people are free to make their own content. And I know just last week we shared a song that a family had written for use in their church, highlighting their faith and climate. So we're able to feature kind of individual content as well, as people are happy for us to.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point about being able to use social media. And I know Els is a very active tweeter. So I think that's a great resource that we can have. What we do in terms of David's own worship material is that we share a short 2-minute version of his longer major reflection or sermon that he has in a Sunday service. We've also shared our Advent calendar, which we had last year, which was contributions from a range of volunteers across different denominations, different parts of Scotland, and slightly further afield as well, even Fiji, were represented in our Advent calendar. And we're looking at Creation Time, which obviously follows the Climate Sunday process, as a great focus for that as well. But for Climate Sunday itself, what we're trying to do is all the resources that David will be sharing between now and that major service, which we are going to be involved in organising and encouraging you to be part of in your own churches, in your own homes, in terms of the big Climate Sunday service on 5th of September from Glasgow. What we're really keen to do is share the resources that David produces that you can share in your own church in advance of a Sunday, but also, if it's appropriate, in terms of the readings and perhaps fitting in with the lectionary in some of the churches, then being able to share them at other points and other services throughout the course of the year as well. We'll make sure that the newsletter shares a lot of that information going forward as well in relation to Climate Sunday specifically for the next 5 months leading up to the September culmination of the Climate Sunday initiative.
Yeah, I wonder if we should just say a little bit more about timetable. Just so it does sink in. It took a long time for it to sink into my head about the 5th of September, which doesn't mean, which God forbid that you should stop being environmentally minded churches after the 5th of September. But this, this is when things come together and come to a head, and when, the commitments can be presented, when that speaking out starts to bear fruit. So before, as James will confirm, ideally before the 5th of September, but do carry on with this good work you're doing, the foundations that you're building, because A, you're going to carry on enjoying it. B, that's what we're here for as churches. But 5th of September is to keep in your head.
Now, James, I think this is a question more for you really than anybody else. In terms of the images and things that are on your website, is it okay to use them on other church websites? So any of the congregations that are represented here tonight can make use of these images? Or are there copyright issues around some of the stuff?
So there is no copyright issues on anything that Climate Sunday produces. The purpose of this initiative is to resource churches, and whether it be images from the website or whether it be resources available for download on the resource page, they're all free for use in any way that a church wants to as part of Climate Sunday, or to promote it, whether that be online or in person. We also have poster templates for church notice boards. The video I showed tonight is also available for people to download, and if anyone would like something that they can't find on the website, then the email address to contact us is on the homepage. It's actually on every page of the website, down at the bottom, hello@climatesunday.org, and one of the team will be able to get back to you with whatever it is that you're after. And just as I see the sort of follow-up to this question come in regarding resources for small groups. So the answer to that is yes. On the resources page, some of the resources are suitable for both small group use and for preparing a sermon or a talk. And we are about to launch a new resource in the next week or so from World Vision, which is specifically written for small groups and makes a good connection between kind of the impact on communities in the global south that are more affected by climate change, and tells some of the stories of people that they work with, real life stories that people that they work with and support. So that'll be a good addition to the website, and specifically for small groups. I also know that it's past now, but the resource is potentially still relevant. The USPG Lent course that focused on climate and featured Climate Sunday for any of your churches who are involved with USPG, that was all focused on small groups as well. So there's two examples.
And Stephen, is it, from your point of view, any other resources that you would highlight that could possibly be used by sort of small groups?
Well, obviously we mentioned our Let's Talk About the Climate Emergency resource, which is primarily organised in a time before COVID-19. It was written when we thought we could have small groups around tables talking about a different idea each month and how it affects them, to pray, to talk, and maybe to agree some action in their area. So for example, earlier this year we had a focus on energy. We've had a look at the extreme weather conditions. The challenge in that, of course, has been that we can't meet in small groups physically at the moment. So we're very keen to enable and encourage churches to use those resources online, particularly through medium like Zoom, if that's appropriate in your own setting, or other types of video conferencing, or even sort of prayer circles coming together. So there are a lot of different resources we can share. There's been one recently announced, which is called a Climate Emergency Toolkit, which we worked with Christian Aid, Tear Fund, a whole range of other organisations, many of whom are already supporting Climate Sunday as an initiative. And it's another way to get that action, that taking action in your own church. So alongside a Climate Sunday service and saying the church recognises a climate emergency, that's a fantastic resource, along with obviously our own website, where we've got a whole range of ideas in terms of our focus on the spiritual living, the practical living, and the global living aspects, which could lead towards your church getting more active as an eco-congregation and hopefully applying for an award as well. But we'll certainly share all the other range of partner organisations we've got. We've got very close links, particularly with Christian Aid, SCIAF, and increasingly with Tear Fund and the work they're doing in relation to climate justice. So that's an important place for us as well. But we are a very ecumenical and a very open charity in the way we work. We're building new connections with churches that have not always been active in environmental issues as well, which is a fantastic opportunity for us all, just to share good ideas and new ideas across all the different churches in every part of Scotland.
David, I don't know if you would like to say a wee bit about the Creation Time Season of Creation resources.
Well, as I think I've just indicated in the chat, that will happen in a slightly different way and probably much more obviously ecumenically this year. In the past few years, Eco Congregation has worked very directly with one particular department of the Church of Scotland, which actually has meant that things needed to be prepared really quite early in the year. We're doing things a bit differently this year, and again, still in negotiation, but it's likely we'll be working with the Joint Public Issues team. So the 5 denominations that come together to do that, and it'll emerge ideally sometime in August. And the other thing I rather hope is it won't just be text-based. There should be some sort of video input to it as well. I can't say any more than that, because though I'm probably coordinating it, I'm not doing all of the work. So do look out for it. But the idea is that people are supported with something challenging and exciting through the month of September, which is effectively Creation Time or Season of Creation or Creation Tide. It's the same thing, but different names for it.
I'm noticing here actually Graham Blunt has put into the chat about the Trinity College resource, which is coming up. I don't know, Graham, do you want to say a wee bit more about that?
Yeah, it'll run for 7 weeks leading up to, towards the autumn, leading up to the COP, and there's not very much detail about it yet, but they're planning a launch in May. It's going to be designed for participation by house groups or other small groups for people to follow through, and it's obviously all oriented towards the COP and to groups that are wanting to prepare for that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, in that case, I think it really remains just to say a big thank you to everyone for coming along tonight. There will be some links, which I think Stephen's going to post into the chat for us, just things that you can follow up. So the Climate Sunday chat link, and also a link for our newsletter for you to subscribe to our newsletter. And if you get the newsletter, it comes quite frequently and it gives you a big roundup of all the things that are coming up. So, you know, keep in touch with us, keep an eye on our website, keep an eye on the Climate Sunday website, and you'll see there's a lot of things. I think this is going to be a very busy year for churches as things move forward. There's a lot of new resources coming out, a lot of new things that are happening all around. I notice Edinburgh Jesuit Centre have got some really great resources, and they've been running great evenings through Lent. There's quite a mixture of different things coming up. So I don't know, James, if there's any final thing you wanted to just say before we go.
Just really to echo that, Judith, big thanks for taking time out of your Monday evening. And yeah, if there's anything at all that you can't find that you think is needed on the Climate Sunday website, then please do let us know. We'd love your feedback, and we're constantly adding to what is available, so that every style and tradition of church can find what they need to take action on this issue. And yeah, do feel free to reach out via the email address on the website, and tag us on social media if there's anything that you'd like us to share or retweet as well. So yeah, big thanks, and we're here if you need anything further.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to hand over to David to lead us in prayer to finish up our evening tonight.
Okay, thank you, Judith. This is a prayer which is probably going to be part of the United Reformed Church material. And it's a prayer, let's just say it's a prayer for COP, the United Nations Conference of the Parties, on which all our sort of hopes, but questions as well, are resting. So let's pray. Sustaining God, as in November, at great cost and with great urgency, the leaders of our species and those with concern for their common home will gather in Glasgow. So we ask for your welcoming, affirming presence in the many layers of gathering around Scotland, which are part of that event. Give to those who make decisions a freedom from the burdens of a past which has pushed us to this cliff edge. Give a dawning vision of your offer of healing greater than the blocked horizon of what it might cost. Argue and wrestle with the powers and principalities of expediency and despair, and open every human ear to the voices of earth, of sisters, brothers, siblings who already suffer sharply. Save us from the despair of complacency and the toxic temptation when the visitors have departed to embrace business as usual. For that normal has gone, and our only future will be in wakefulness, in trust, in hope, yes, and joy as we live out your love for the earth we are part of, through your word made flesh, Jesus our friend. Hallelujah. Anyway. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, all of you, for coming along this evening. And please do get in touch with any of us that have been speaking tonight if you want to find out anything else, if there's any questions or anything that you're looking for in the way of resources. Do give us a shout and we'll do our best to try and help you. We may not have all the answers, but we'll give it a go.
Thank you so much. Thank you for gearing us up for the year ahead. Thank you, David.
Yes, thank you very
much.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
For all your hard work.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.